Hello and welcome to the shop. You haven't seen me in a while, and there's a good reason for that. I had a total knee replacement surgery in July, and recovery has been a careful but very successful project. And so I am getting back into the shop, and I'm getting back into the shop at a really fun time because, first of all, with recovery of my knee, I am starting to be able to be on my feet for long periods of time that continue to lengthen as I build stamina, which is fantastic, but also because we're getting ready for the North Carolina Woodturner Symposium, and I have the delight of being invited to demonstrate for Bestwood tools. In that light, I'm going to show you a couple of new offerings from Bestwood that I think you're going to like, starting out with a very fun historical piece of equipment, or a piece of wood holding equipment or tool, if you will, and that is a cup chuck. If you've ever watched Richard Raffin's videos, he's done a couple about using these in the late 70s and early 80s. It literally is just a piece of steel threaded to fit your headstock. This one is a 1.5 inch, and it's just a cup. And it's great for spindle turning, especially if you're trying to produce numbers. So we're gonna do a little bit of work here real quick between centers to prep to show you how the cup chuck works. And what I have here is just a piece of walnut that is a reject from a furniture factory. I got a hold of a bunch of these just little bits and pieces, parts of legs and whatnot that just didn't quite make the cut, but they're great for reuse as things like candlesticks or whatever. And it's a perfect opportunity for me to just give you an example of a way to use the cup chuck. So this is, like I said, 1.5 inch cup. So I'm going to set that on my caliper, and we're just first of all going to establish a tenon that will fit into the cup so that we can hold this piece of wood. I'm going to use a very slight taper, just so that we are sure that the piece of wood jams into the cup chuck, because this is literally a jam chuck. That should be all we need. So a little prep on blanks, not a whole lot, doesn't take much, just to be able to fit the end of the blank into the cup. Make sure you've got your shop mallet. And that's probably a little big, but you can see old dry wood. I've got a center here. I think we're a little bit big. We're probably going to take that down a hair more, just so that we can actually seat that further into the cup. Getting it out, though, is pretty simple. Just take the knockout bar, which is not quite long enough. I'll have to get a longer one made. But if your knockout bar is a little short, take the knob off the back, and you can send it with a little bit of weight behind it, and that should do the trick. So make sure your knockout bar is long enough to get that. That's something, lesson learned, new tool, lesson learned. So you can see where I've got a nice friction mark. I want it to get it a little bit deeper, so I'm going to take some more wood down here so that we can get it jammed into that chuck properly. I can foresee this being very useful, say if you're turning a run of small wooden spoons or scoops. This would be perfect. You've got 10 or 12 blanks prepped, and you just need to be able to run through those scoops really quickly, this is a perfect way to do that. All right, we still have a bit of a taper, but we've taken it down a bit more so that we're going to get some more depth into the cup chuck. This is a nice aged piece of cherry, I believe. Very old, very dry. That just tightens nicely. Yeah, we're gonna be fine. Now, absolutely can bring your tail center up. We're lined up, that's nice. Another trick Mr. Raffin shows is drawing lines when you have it between centers, drawing lines so that you can see where it's squared up. And that's just pretty well seated in there. Let's see how it works. Let's turn something. Now this is certainly a test of any holding method for a piece. We're going to do some hollowing. It feels good and solid. We'll come in with a 3/8 inch spindle gouge and see how it manages. Face shield on, absolutely essential. Tool rest is a touch high. Okay, so we're getting some vibration here, and I think that's more about me not having it seated deep enough into the chuck than anything. So we'll give it a whack. All right, we trued it back up. We have trued it back up. Now I don't have a drill bit mounted in a handle per se, but if you have strong hands and you feel like you can do this safely, you can drill a depth hole manually. Slow the lathe down, and you're just going to drop that in there. It'll center up itself. You've got to have a good handle on it so it doesn't. And this is best if you actually make a handle, but this will work for now. Just be quick about it. Just so that we can set a depth for our little aperitif. And if it does catch like that, if it jams, let go of it. Doesn't hurt your hands at all. Again, make a handle if you don't feel like this is the way to go. I also need to sharpen my drill bit. All right, that's a good start. That gives us a start so we're not adding any extra force here. Again, I've never used this tool before, and I'm sure with time and experience, I'll be much more efficient with it, because efficiency is the whole point of this tool. It's just a matter of learning how to use it in such a manner. We'll come back with our spindle gouge. One thing to remember too, and you hear a little vibration, but the piece is not actually moving in the chuck. What we're dealing with is the fact that we are 8 inches from the end of the chuck, and we are 11.5 inches from the headstock. The further away from the headstock you get, the more vibration is able to be caused. So lightening my cuts removes that vibration, but this is not moved in the chuck. That's pretty impressive, especially since I have a lot of leverage out here. We've got near, again, small vibration, but that's easily turned by easy pressure. See that? Good. I'm not quite as deep as I would like to go, so we're going to try the drill and pull method, holding the gouge at 45 degrees and just driving it straight into the center to drill. Look at that. It did that just fine. That didn't budge. We're still lined up. I've got a deeper hole to work to. See how that feels. We're just about where we want to be. So it will withstand drilling or using the drill and pull method with a spindle gouge. Important to note too, with the drill and pull method, all the energy is being directed straight down toward the drive center, which helps support the cut. All right, I'm a little off center. You saw me jump. Center that up. So to shape the lip of our little vessel. We're about where we want to be depth-wise. Cleaning that up will take us where we want to be. There we go. All right, we're going to come in there with a little round nose scraper and just gently scrape. This is actually an asymmetric scraper, and just gently scrape. Not bad. Not bad at all. We've got a decent finish off the tool in there. Certainly sandable, certainly finishable. I'll do a little work of that off camera, boring, and then we will finish this little piece and part it off the chuck and see how the whole operation proceeds. So a little tiny bit of sanding and finishing. We'll be right back. All right, we've got the inside and the outside of our little cup finish. Now we're going to work down here and make this a little cordial glass, a little stem. And I want to insert something. I'm not used to using a chuck like this. This is the first time I've ever used one. As you can see, we're extremely stable. Sanding did not move the piece in any way. It's exactly where it was when I took the tool off of it. However, for my peace of mind, I'm going to bring up the tailstock just to offer a bit of support. I'm not going to add pressure or anything. I just want to have it there in case, as I start to get thin, I do create some vibration that would be from tool use. I've been out of the shop for a few months recovering from surgery, so I'm rusty. But we'll try to use the best technique we can. But just, it's always smart if you can offer tool rest support to offer tool rest support. It's just the best practice in my experience, and I'm sure many others will tell you the same. So we will put a little bit of paper towel in here as padding so we don't mark up our surface. And just use that as just an extra little piece of insurance. I don't think I need it in regard to the chuck maintaining its hold at all. I'm just doing this for my own peace of mind and to make sure if I do make a little bit too aggressive of a cut. Now you see I'm barely even impressing the paper towel. I'm not putting pressure. I'm just putting support. So if I get a little aggressive, we don't bounce that around and mess it up. But I think I've gotten kind of a feel for how this works. So we'll see. Again, we didn't apply any pressure. We just offered support. Cut that delicate with it jammed in this cup chuck. And it worked very well. We're going to sand a little bit more, finish a little bit more. We'll part it off, and we'll talk about how well this worked and maybe some applications that would be practical. I'm certainly not being very practical right now. I'm testing it, so I'm playing, but at the same time, I'm actually very genuinely thrilled with the results I'm getting, where this is dead, perfect, straight, hasn't moved, and it's jammed. This is a jam. That's pretty phenomenal. All right, we're ready to part it off. And then we will talk about the use of this not unique, but definitely not common chucking practice. It's certainly not common in today's day and age with the four-jaw chuck. However, this was common 30, 40 years ago, and maybe longer. So we'll talk a bit about it. Well, there you have it. My first run with the cup chuck, very useful little tool. We just have a nice little dainty aperitif glass, just something fun, quick, something to put this through its paces and test it out. I can see a lot of practical uses for this, especially the thing that caught my eye and intrigued me was coffee scoops. I make a ball coffee scoop, a sphere at the end with a handle, and I could see turning that to just a tiny bit over 1.5 inch. We're talking 1 33/64, and then using this as a jam. So I've turned my scoop, I then take it, part it off, clear this, and then I can jam it at 90 degrees with the handle coming out and hollow my little coffee scoop right in here and just grab the handle and pull it right out. That will make turning coffee scoops 10 times more efficient for me. And rather than it taking a half an hour per scoop, we're looking at 10 minutes or less per scoop, as long as my cuts are clean and my shapes are good. I can see a lot of practical use for this. If you're turning a lot of production, say you're cranking out spin tops, Christmas trees, or snowmen, and you've got longer blanks that you need to have way to hold, but you need to be able to pop them out, pop something new in, and keep moving. You're not working, you're not grabbing for a wrench, you're not trying to fit tenons or anything. You jam this in, seat it, and it holds very solid. As you can see, we got a very nice, delicate little goblet here, and it didn't move. It did not budge. So this is a useful tool, a very useful tool. Just because it's an old style way of holding wood doesn't mean it's not very effective, and I think I can see a lot of people benefiting from this. Check it out, bestwoodtools.com. Thank you very much, Vic, for sending this my way to play with, and I'm going to have a lot of fun using this over the next few years to do some fun creative things. I do want to add that I did figure out a way, my knockout bar wasn't long enough for me to knock out the piece, the blank from it through the headstock. All I did was unscrew it, grab my knockout bar, ran it up from the bottom, and just tapped it a couple of times, and it popped it right out, just no problem. So that's a solution until I obtain a longer knockout bar. So if that's something that you might think, well, that might hinder me, actually it really doesn't. This unscrews quick, knock it out, slap it back on, stick in your new blank, and keep rolling. I can see this being incredibly useful, especially for people who are cranking out production numbers. So check it out at bestwoodtools.com. Thank you very much for joining me. And remember, just one more pass means put the bowl gouge down. See you next time.